Hello everyone, this is Jennifer, and I am going to be talking about the Netflix show, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. And that music that I just played for you, that is nothing that is this new Netflix show. That was the theme song from the original Sabrina the Teenage Witch show. And might I say, that was also my childhood. So this new show focuses more on the comics, which were by Archie Comics, and this was a lot darker, apparently. I have learned so much about Sabrina this past year, and this show definitely has changed my view on Sabrina Spellman. So, what I will say about the sitcom from the 90s, you definitely have your noticeable differences and your slightly noticeable similarities. So the names are the same. Obviously, there are definitely some different characters. In the new show, there's no Principal Kraft, which, that's okay. There were definitely a lot of characters that they added in the sitcom. Obviously, for comedy reasons, but in the new show, there are so many more characters that are more true to the comics. We have the Weird Sisters, we have Father Blackwood, we have Ambrose the cousin, and we definitely have a few more characters. I'm not sure if everyone was from the comics, but I know some of them definitely were. And might I say, the atmospheres are quite different between the two shows. In the sitcom, you have your classic 90s comedy where everything's kind of lighthearted, funny jokes here and there, some not so funny jokes here and there, but depends when you were watching it. At the time it was funny, in the new century maybe not as funny, but yeah, it was much more of a campy take on Sabrina. In the new show, it's not for kids. I would not recommend this for kids. Like, even maybe PG-13, I would say. Close to rated R, though, actually. There's a lot more gore. There is definitely a lot more darker subject matter. There's a lot of references to the Dark Lord and all of these different satanic rituals, which you did not see in the comic. Or not the comic, the sitcom. What a difference, might I add. So Sabrina herself, in the sitcom, she was played by Melissa Joan Hart, and in the new series, she's played by Kiernan Shipka. Two completely different Sabrinas. The newer Sabrina is much edgier. There is definitely a more serious tone to her, which obviously because it's not a comedy show. And she definitely has a lot more responsibilities, a lot more at stake when it comes to the magic that she uses. She uses some pretty dark spells in the new show, including like resurrection spells and like contacting the dead, like a lot of that stuff. And also another noticeable difference, the aunts, Zelda and Hilda. So here's the similarity. In both shows, the two sisters are opposites. They have their own thing going on. One is more responsible and serious, more practical. And then the other one, like, she does take care of the family, but in a different way from the other. And she just kind of has more of a comedy side to her. Not as serious, more lighthearted. Zelda is obviously the first one I mentioned, and Hilda is the second one. The difference is, in the newer series, Zelda, she's like 10 times darker. She definitely has an edge, like really has an edge. Like, you kind of get where Sabrina gets it from. Even though Sabrina defies her a lot, it's kind of where she gets that side of her from. And Zelda is very, very serious. She takes their practices very serious. She does not like it when anything is questioned or dilly-dallied. She's like, this is what the Dark Lord commands of us, and we shall do it. On Hilda, she is still a comic relief, but she's much more motherly towards Sabrina. She takes care of her a lot. She tries to be more supportive, and she comforts her. Zelda's not as much of that, though we do see a little bit of a side of that from her later on in the series. So how it works with the new show, there was part 1 that was released around Halloween time last year, and then part 2 was just recently released in April. And this, like part 1 and 2, are supposed to be a whole season. So we only just got through season 1, guys. There's a lot more to come. We got part 3 coming up, which is technically going to be the beginning of season 2. I'm just clearing that up now. In part 1, it was very... So when I started watching it, I had to put the sitcom aside, because I grew up with the sitcom and it was very, very different. I had seen the trailer for the show, and I was thinking to myself, okay, so they definitely took a darker take on Sabrina here. It turns out it is more related to the comics, and I didn't even know that at the time. So yeah. When I started watching the show, it was a lot for me to adjust to because, like I said, I grew up with the sitcom. They were such different characters. In the show, I had to accept the fact that Zelda tries to off Hilda every now and then, and she brings her back to life by burying her in the family cemetery. Yeah. Comedy at its best. And then there's also the fact that there's a lot of, like, this really focuses on the whole witch lore of witches being involved with satanic rituals and, like, worshipping and doing things for the Dark Lord. And, like, the sitcom had nothing, like, no mention of that. It is a complete different take on witches. Like I said, much more campy version. Which is nice when you're a child growing up. That is kind of more your style. But as an adult, I can watch the show and truly enjoy it, because after the first few episodes, I did adjust, and I actually started really enjoying the show. And I liked that there was a little more heart to it. There's more at stake. There's more of a plot to follow, which it's interesting seeing Sabrina in that way. Definitely not how you would have imagined her back in the 90s. And the noticeable differences that I would say, the atmosphere and the characters. There's so many more characters. We have Ambrose, who is Sabrina's cousin. He is actually under house arrest most of the time, and he doesn't get to do a lot at the first, like in the first few episodes. But then under Father Blackwood, who is the high priest of the coven, he is able to do more. He gets more involved. He even gets in trouble at one point because Father Blackwood tries to frame him for a murder of their anti-pope. And that's like a whole big plotline that happens in part 2. But Ambrose, as a character, he's very connected to Sabrina. He's very supportive of her. He also warns her of the consequences of using certain spells. He's just very involved in her life. So I liked that addition into the Sabrina story. We also have, like I said, Father Blackwood. He is basically one of the main villains in the show, and I hate him. Which, that was probably the writer's goal, because he is a misogynistic, lying, evil, manipulative, ugh. He's just the worst. His views on women especially, that is what really irked me with him. And the reason why Sabrina's parents might have been killed, and that's a difference also with the show. In the sitcom, they were alive, but they couldn't see Sabrina. In this new show, they were killed in a plane crash. That Father Blackwood caused. Why? Because he didn't like Edward's views, and he didn't agree with him that women should be involved more, like the warlocks. Yeah. So, he also tries, at one point he tries to convert the coven, but in the process, he also tries to murder them. He tries to poison them. And he runs away. He did not get his just desserts in this season. He got humiliated a little. Not enough to satisfy me. So I get the feeling we'll see him again in season 2. And another group of characters we're introduced to is the Weird Sisters. They are kind of like an allusion to the three witches from that Scottish play that I'm not going to say because I am a theater major. But they are a very interesting group of girls. That's the nicest thing I can say about them. They definitely uphold their name, Weird Sisters, and they have a really interesting relationship with Sabrina. They start off really not liking her. They do not want her involved with their school or anything, and they don't like the fact that she's half mortal, half witch, which, what can you do? But yeah, she has to deal with them a lot, and they're very off and on throughout the season. This is something that was a little confusing and a little irksome to me. One episode, they're helping her after she helped them, but then again, they become catty and weird towards her. It was so off and on like that throughout the season. And even Sabrina was very off and on with them. She's like, hey guys, can you help me do a resurrection spell? And then, or no, it wasn't that one, but it was contacting the dead in the Christmas episode. And they seemed more friendly towards each other. But then in part 2, they're catty again, and Sabrina's like, I don't trust them. I don't want to be near them. And in another episode, she's like, hey, we're friends. And it's like, girl, you didn't trust them. It was a little weird in that respect, but I mean, it still worked for the story. It was just a personal issue that I had with it. But yeah, I think that as characters they were really interesting to watch. They were very mischievous, especially the leader, Prudence, who is actually Father Blackwood's actual daughter. And after she learns about that, her main goal is to just earn the family name, because he's not particularly proud that she's his daughter until she attempts to murder him. They have some weird standards in the witch world. But yeah, they were very interesting characters. And it seems like maybe Prudence is finally on the Spellman side. Can't say definitely, but most likely. No harm, no foul, right? Also, Lilith, she was a big character. She took over Sabrina's teacher, who was Miss Wardwell, and she pretends to be Miss Wardwell throughout the whole season. She manages to earn Sabrina's respect, she gains her trust, and she tries to control her because she's working for the Dark Lord. She's basically his mistress. And the Dark Lord's plan is that he wants a prophecy to happen, which we learn all about this in part 2. The prophecy is that Sabrina is to be the herald of hell. And this is a really dark prophecy because you just think Sabrina is a half mortal, half witch. In the sitcom, that's all she was. She had nothing to do with the Dark Lord. That was it. But yeah, that was an interesting twist. And also, spoiler, we learn that the Dark Lord is Sabrina's real father. Ugh. And he wants her to basically be his queen. Yep. That sounds about right with the show, actually. But, yeah, so we do see the Dark Lord throughout the show. He's this hideous creature that is like part goat and mostly goat. He's like a goat man of sorts. And then we do see his true form at the end. Just a man. Just a sinister, though. And eventually they have to trap him to put an end to the prophecy of the apocalypse. And what happens is Sabrina actually has 2 boyfriends in this season. The first one is Harvey. You guys all know Harvey from the sitcom. He was the main boyfriend in the sitcom. Just in season 1, he was the boyfriend. They broke up. Now he's the friend. And Sabrina has a new boyfriend. His name is Nick. And he actually was working with the Dark Lord. And I theorized that there was going to be some kind of betrayal with him. Not as big of a betrayal as I thought, but he still kind of worked with the Dark Lord because the Dark Lord asked him to get close to Sabrina and to earn her trust. Like, to get her to trust him. And he didn't want to play a big role in that, and he did actually end up falling in love with her. And he does redeem himself by offering his body as an entrapment of the Dark Lord. So once that happens, he's placed under a sleeping spell, and Lilith, who becomes the queen, she takes him back to hell. So that was like the big moment at the end of the show. And Sabrina has a plan for season 2 to go back to hell and get him. We don't know what that's going to entail, but it's definitely going to be a big motivation for Sabrina, and it's going to be a big storyline. So that'll be exciting. And speaking of Harvey, there's also 2 other friends in the show, Rosalind and Theo, who was formerly Susie. They weren't in the sitcom, but they are definitely a big part in the new show. They don't know about Sabrina's witch powers like Harvey at the beginning, but eventually all of them do learn. They do kind of fear and distrust Sabrina at one point, but eventually they realize she's still our friend and she's not going to hurt us. She means well. So they do end up helping Sabrina, especially when we get to the Dark Lord plot. They actually become a big part in helping her defeat him. So I liked that they did that. Also, Harvey and Rosalind start dating, so there's so many things happened in one season. But I thought it was really well done how they added their characters and they added them into the main storyline because they were more on the side in the beginning. So I thought they did a great job bringing everybody together. So that was really well done. But yeah, the show, so much darker than the sitcom. And yeah, you got Salem, the talking cat, in the sitcom, who makes all the fun, sarcastic cat comments. But in the series, he is a familiar who is there to protect Sabrina. And he does nothing but just follow her around silently, meowing and purring, sometimes purring at the most inappropriate times. But yeah, he's just not as big of a role in this show, which is okay, because in the sitcom it worked, in this show it would have been kind of weird. But hey, sometimes you have to make changes. But yeah, I think the show is really well done. If you guys grew up with the sitcom like me, it is definitely a big change, an adjustment. But after the first few episodes, you do end up really enjoying the show. There's so much more depth to it, more plot, and definitely much darker subject material. Like, there's even a lot of religious influence in this. Like, even faith plays a big role. How much are you willing to believe in your faith, especially after what it asks of you? And yeah, it was really an interesting topic that they covered in it. You see it throughout the series. It's not like the main topic, but definitely a big one. And yeah, it's definitely not what I expected, but it's an amazing show. I highly recommend it if you guys haven't seen it. And like I said, if you've seen the sitcom, just try to put that to the side. And just kind of treat this as like a new experience. A much darker new experience. And there's a lot to talk about with the show. I covered the basics, but definitely I am going to keep an eye out for season 2. And once that is over, I'm going to do another video. But for now, I'm going to leave it here. I am doing another video series of reviewing, it's a show called Fosse Verdon. It's on FX if you guys haven't seen it. If you guys are into Bob Fosse, Gwen Verdon, which any Broadway fans, it's definitely an interesting show so far. And it's on FX on Tuesdays. So yeah, if you guys want to watch that. And if you guys have seen the new Sabrina show, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys have seen both the sitcom and the new show, and tell me what you guys think of the differences and similarities. Alright guys, you have a good day, and for heaven's sake, go and watch The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix. Like and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Bye!